You know, I had a feeling that this is how this was going to end. I just hope we don't have to wait too long for season 2.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Will, and welcome back to the last spoiler review for Ahsoka. This is going to cover episodes 7 and 8 of Ahsoka, and I gotta say, this is probably the best Star Wars television we've got. This was top tier, well paced, really well done. I don't have a lot of negative to say about it, but I do have some theories about where this is going. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you have not watched either episode 7, Dreams and Madness, or episode 8, the finale, which was the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord, make sure you go check those episodes out, because those will be the episodes I will be talking about this, and also just giving my general overall thoughts about season 1 as a whole, and where I would hope a season 2 or something in the future would be going. But if this happens to be your first time checking out one of my videos, hi, my name is Will, and I've got a lot of spit in my mouth. Give me a second. Hi, my name is Will, and I do geeky stuff on the internet. I do reviews and reactions, discussions, some gaming, some drinking. I just like to have fun, and I hope you enjoy that sort of thing as well. And if that happens to be your bag and you're interested in hearing it from a geeky bear like myself, subscribe to the channel. It would really help me out. I would greatly appreciate it. Trying to hit at least 600 before the end of the year. Goal was 650, but unless something crazy happens in the next 2 months, 600 is what I'm aiming for. So episode 7, entitled Dreams and Madness, we pick up with a couple major things that happen in the episode. Ahsoka and Huyang make it to Perdia while they're being assaulted by a bunch of bombers inside and outside of the poor whales. God, that's what they get for giving you a free ride. They're able to escape and hide out in the planetary ring around Perdia while Thrawn waits out their next move. While on the surface, we've got two major stories happening. We get some alone time with Sabine and Ezra. They're able to catch up. They're able to kind of talk and speak more about it. At this point, Sabine still doesn't know if Ahsoka's alive or not. According to her, she's dead. It's really more so just her trying to figure out if she made the right choice with this gamble of hers in order to get to Ezra, which is nice to say that nobody really holds anything against her. I was worried that this was going to cause some unnecessary tension between characters, but it didn't. It was a gamble. It was a big risk that she took. But it's also cool because we get to see them catch up and just have a moment of peace before all the craziness happens when Shin and some of the Imperial forces that were sent out to take care of them eventually arrive. The reason I say just Shin is because before all that craziness goes down, Shin and Baylan actually part ways. Baylan decides he has to go off and do whatever he needs to do on this planet. He lets Shin go to become the Sith she was always meant to be, or something like that, but gives her like one parting lesson as her former master. I want to say it was impatience leads to your downfall. I want to say that's what it is. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. How about that? The whole time, Thrawn has this master plan of how to get off the planet and how to keep everyone occupied and try to get people to do the things that he needs to have done, and requires the Night Sisters' aid and that sort of thing, which becomes very apparent in episode 8. But episode 7 is a lot more of a lower speed, even though we have the sequence with Ahsoka and Huyang trying to make it to the planet, outrun the ships being sent by Morgan and Thrawn in order to take them out. So there's a lot of action happening, but it still feels, in comparison to the finale, much more chill, if I can use that sort of terminology. Ahsoka does make her way to the planet and is able to depart the ship while Huyang tries to draw off the forces and has one final sparring match or duel with Balin before they go their separate ways. So she's able to get away from Balin to go help Sabine and Ezra. And the cool thing is that during the fight with Ezra, Sabine, and Shin and the forces, we get to see Ezra kind of really show off his years of training at this point, because Sabine tries to hand him his old saber and he's like, no, that's yours. And I love Ezra's personality. I didn't watch a ton of Rebels, but I absolutely love the chemistry that him and Sabine have on camera, at least these versions of them. And also just the quippiness, how he wants to try to, like, hey, we can talk about this instead of like trying to actually fight. And oops, sorry, I kicked my leg. And even when he's going up against Shin without a lightsaber, he's able to, move the saber with the Force. And he just uses the Force for the most part, while Sabine is still relying on the saber and her blasters. Still hasn't fully tapped into the Force, but like I said in my previous video, that doesn't take too much longer. Eventually Ahsoka shows up, pops in and saves everybody, which is really cool. And Shin runs off as the Imperials end up heading back and retreating. So we get the lovely reunion between Ezra and Ahsoka, and even nice little reunion with Sabine and Ahsoka as well. More of their relationship is explored definitely in episode 8, but you can definitely just see a much more lighter version of Ahsoka. You can see a lot of that weight has just been lifted off of her, and it's really cool to see. And she's definitely much more enlightened and has a better understanding about what it's going to take to be a proper master to Sabine, which I really love that sort of thing. But that's pretty much where episode 7 leaves off, is the brief reunion, and with the individual pieces making their way to their final destinations before we get to the finale of episode 8. I actually really did enjoy episode 7. It was a nice low-key-ish episode with action that really tees up the stakes of episode 8 and the stakes of what it means if Thrawn escapes. So it's really a brief reprieve before you get to the heavily action-filled finale that we'll talk about right now, which is entitled The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. It's a fun title. I actually didn't notice the title until I went back to check titles. I thought it was cute. But pretty much episode 8, there's a brief moment before all the action really hits where Ezra is actually assembling a new lightsaber. He gets to talk about Kanan Jarrus, his former master, a little bit with Hugh Yang. And at the same token, Sabine is listening. And what Hugh Yang is really talking about how the master and apprentice relationship can be complicated but is important. I'm paraphrasing. It's really more so not necessarily directed to Ezra. It's really directed more towards Sabine, which leads to Sabine having that conversation with Ahsoka while Ahsoka's like outside chilling on the ship. And there's obviously no ill will or bad blood or anything like that. Like, I think Sabine was probably expecting some sort of scolding, but Ahsoka was like, your gamble paid off. I mean, you can't argue with the results of it. And, while Sabine still feels conflicted about it, Ahsoka is much more reassuring to her that that was the best decision you can make. And we probably wouldn't be in this opportunity to get Ezra back if it wasn't for you. And how she really opened up a little bit more about Anakin and how she used to make reckless, crazy decisions that no one believed in, and except for Anakin. And it's important for a master to always be there for their apprentice, and that's what Ahsoka reassures Sabine, that no matter what happens, I will be there by your side. Which I really, really enjoyed about how their relationship has evolved from when we first were reintroduced to them at the beginning of episode 1. But they end up making their charge towards the castle after their ship is unfortunately downed. It's a race against time, pretty much, because Thrawn is ready to go. And he knows he just needs to put enough stuff in between him and them so he can escape and they'll be stranded. And we really get this cool sort of battle of the tower. They have to fight through these Imperial forces, and the help that the Night Sisters were going to provide was to basically turn the Imperial forces that were volunteered into like unkillable zombies. Basically, they strike them down, the witches bring them back, and then it just becomes literally like a zombie movie, which is actually kind of fun. Also, Morgan gets promoted but doesn't read the fine print. So she gets promoted by her sisters, gets like the super dark eyes and the blackness and the green energy, and gets a cool katana, which is like flowing with green energy, which is pretty dope. She ends up having to pretty much sacrifice herself to keep Ahsoka and the others from reaching the Star Destroyer. They are able to get to the Star Destroyer. Only Ezra is able to make it on, thanks to some help from Sabine, who now has the ability to tap into the Force. As she was being choked out by one of the Death Troopers, who has clearly been dead for a while, she is able to tap into the Force to grab her saber and to take care of him, which is really, really cool. Because they're slowly kept leading up to it throughout the entire series, and the last 2 episodes really sort of emphasizes like being a Jedi is more than just wielding a lightsaber. It's about trusting in yourself. It's about being able to trust in the Force. And she and Ezra are able to throw him onto the Star Destroyer before it gets too far away. And Sabine was going to go with him, but Ahsoka was starting to get overwhelmed by Morgan and some of the troopers. And instead of going with Ezra, she stayed to help Ahsoka. And they're able to kind of take care of Morgan as well as the other Death Troopers before the tower is bombarded. There's a race against time, still trying to catch up to the Star Destroyer that's already in orbit once Yang arrives with the ship. And unfortunately, they don't catch him in time. And before Thrawn bolts out of there, he gives a lovely little speech of like, hey, you tried, but this is where I leave you. Unfortunately, have a good day. And then he takes off, and they're stuck on this planet in the middle of the unknown region. Except for Ezra did make it onto the ship, which is good. And the episode does conclude with them still helping the native that they've kind of teamed up with, sort of trying to figure out what's next and to try to continue to move on beyond the current situation, because they did what they wanted to do. They got Ezra home. And we do see Ezra make it back to Hera. He commandeered an Imperial Trooper outfit and a shuttle and made it back to Hera with a lovely little reunion. Fortunately, short-lived, as Thrawn and his Star Destroyer make it to planet Dathomir along with the sisters. That's where the episode pretty much ends, with a lovely little cameo from Hayden Christensen as Anakin, who is looking off as a Force Ghost at Ahsoka and Sabine as they figure out what's next. Yeah, it wraps up a really well-done first season. I really liked everyone's performance. There is a little brief moment here and there where we see Shin going to the Marauders that we encountered in episode 6 and sort of, I guess, taking over for the most part, or claiming leadership, while we see Baylan on some sort of giant monolithic statue that's pointing off into the distance to a flashing beacon. That's probably where we're going to, unfortunately, say our goodbyes to Ray Stevenson, because I doubt there will be anything further with him as Baylan Skoll. Will they recast a character? It's very possible. Ray Stevenson, he gave such a great performance. Obviously, episode 8 was really focused on Ahsoka, Sabine, Ezra, Thrawn, those major characters, where if anything that the episode kind of dropped the ball with is any sort of resolution with Shin and Baylan's character, I would assume that if a season 2 happened, there was probably plans to do more with those characters. It'll still be kind of up in the air to see what happens with those characters going forward. We at least know that Shin will probably still remain and still play a role in season 2. However, I'm not sure what they'll do with Baylan Skoll's character, if they might remove him off screen, or if they'll recast him with someone else in order to continue that character story. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Overall, these 2 episodes were fantastic. Episode 8 is much more action-packed, very heavy in terms of like lightsaber fights. All the choreography is great. I loved seeing Ezra's new saber, and even Sabine getting slowly better with the Force and becoming better with the saber. She's, at this point, feels like a very like a true apprentice. And the fact that they stuck together, I'm super happy about as well. And how important that relationship between the 2 of them will be in a season 2, or even whatever else that they decide to do. Thrawn returns. He is now the biggest threat to the galaxy. And at least Ezra made it there in order to warn them. He has intel that they need. The question is, will the New Republic believe them, or will this spin off into like what ended up being the Resistance? I can't remember if it spins off to be the Resistance that we see in the sequel trilogy going forward. To be fair, It has been a long time since I've watched any of the sequel trilogy. And if I remember correctly, with Force Awakens, New Republic had the Resistance as like a secret thing. And I'm wondering if we're seeing the beginnings of that. If we're seeing it with Hera and Mon Mothma like secretly putting this together, very similar to how they secretly put together the Rebellion. In terms of a season 2, is it going to be a season 2, or are they going to do something like have all the different major characters from these different series that are set in the same time period, if they're going to all have to kind of join forces together to stop Thrawn? That's kind of the other option I see happening instead of the season 2. We'll have to wait and see, because the writer's strike has finally ended, but the SAG-AFTRA strike for the actors is still going on. So there's still going to be a delay, at least for a time being, until we get a season 2. I wouldn't expect a season 2 at this point until like 2025. And that's not a bad thing. It gives them time to kind of work out a really good story, and this just really kind of continues to put the preferences on give Dave Filoni control over Star Wars, because he knows what he's doing. I think Dave Filoni has a vision and an understanding about Star Wars more than a lot of other people. So to have him at the helm of an overarching story like a Kevin Feige, I think is not a terrible idea, especially with some of the hopes and new movies that they're talking about coming out. I mean, him having a hand in the development of that makes total sense. Thrawn being back definitely makes it seem like it's worth getting Mando, Bo-Katan, and the other Mandalorians, and any other major characters that we've seen in the live-action Star Wars together in order to stop Thrawn before he eventually probably helps with the formation of the First Order. So it might be a foregone conclusion, but we'll just have to wait and see. I really enjoyed Ahsoka as a series. I think it's probably the most well put together of the Star Wars series. There wasn't really an episode I felt like was just skippable, or that didn't have any sort of major bearing on the overarching story. It was a clear, concise story. It never felt rushed, which is something that's really important to me. When it comes to these series on Disney Plus, they've always, at some point, has felt super rushed. Except for maybe like WandaVision and Loki. They've all felt very rushed and very scrunched together to fit a specific number of episodes. This felt like a logical stopping point for this first season, so I just hope they can deliver on a secondary season or some sort of big, massive mini-series event that you want to have multiple different characters show up in. I think that would work as well. It's probably my new favorite of the Star Wars ones. It's definitely one of the strongest, if not the strongest, that we have seen so far. And it's nice to see that they got the formula down by telling a really great story with interesting characters that people love, but characters that new people like myself can really get invested into and enjoy. The action was great. Characters like Ahsoka was a really compelling character. I really loved Ray Stevenson's Balin Skull. It's just a shame that he's no longer with us, but I loved his character. I thought he was fantastic. I'm just looking forward to whatever they decide to do with the season 2. I'm sure I missed a ton of stuff from this episode. Let me know anything I might have missed in the comments down below. That's going to do it for our Season 1 of Ahsoka for these last 2 episodes spoiler reviews. Like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below if you would, please. And thank you for joining me on these episode reviews. I really do appreciate it. I enjoy doing these videos. Might take me a little bit of time to get them out, unfortunately, with timing and scheduling and editing. But I enjoy doing this, and I really hope you enjoy watching this. If you did happen to enjoy this and you happen to be new to the channel, please subscribe. It would really help me out. I would greatly appreciate it. You can follow me on a lot of different social media platforms listed at the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And as always, until next time, may the Force be with you, and I will catch you later. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you did like this video, why not give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends? You can subscribe to the channel by clicking on my gorgeous little face right over there. You can follow me on all the various social media platforms right below. And last but certainly not least, if you've got a few extra minutes, why not check out one of the lovely videos floating right over here. Later.